because, all right, let me stop the recording.
Can you make me?
All right, so we're going to resume our parasha with chapter 35, verse 9, and we come to the end of Parashas Massey. Vayidaber Adonai el Moshe lemor. God spoke to Moses. Daber al bnei Yisrael v'amarta lehem ki atem ovrim et hayarden artza Canaan. When you cross over the Jordan River to the land of Canaan, no Rashi there. V'kritem lachem arim, arei mikwat tiano lachem, and you arrange cities for yourselves. Arei mikwat tiano lachem, cities of refuge, sanctuary cities. V'nas sham rotzeach makei nefesh bishkada, and a person who kills somebody accidentally with negligence will have to run there. So that's what the verse says. Rashi says, what does this mean? It means preparing, meaning you have to prepare for yourself. So God says to Moshe, when you cross the Jordan, the first thing you're supposed to do is to establish these cities of refuge, sanctuary cities. And it's symbolic, just like the land of Canaan is a sanctuary for you, so too the land of, you have to establish in your land a sanctuary. Yes, you had a question, Tor?
Yeah, I feel like the existence of your miklot implies that you can just kill someone by accident before.
Yeah. The blood avenger not only can, some say that it's a mitzvah.
Wow.
That it's a mitzvah for him to kill his relatives, to avenge the blood of his relatives. Yeah.
So why do we have to do miklot? It feels kind of arbitrary. Like it's either a good thing or a bad thing to eventually death. So
the point is that we set up a sanctuary to protect this person, to show that this person is. It's a very good question. What Gilad is asking is, well, if he's supposed to be killing him, then why do we have this city of refuge? So it's kind of like, city of refuge is kind of like a prison, that he has to go and do his time in the prison to become a better person because he acted with negligence. And so that's what we're being told, that yeah, if he doesn't go and take responsibility for his actions, he's subject to the whims of the blood avenger. But we want to encourage him to go there, so that to the city of refuge. And who's in the city of refuge? The Levites, who's going to improve spiritually, become a better person. And so then he won't fall to the whims of the blood avenger, and he'll become a better person. Verse 12, and the cities will be for you a refuge from a redeemer. And the cities will be for you a refuge from the redeemer, and the murderer will not die until he stands before the assembly for judgment. Okay, let's see what this means. The cities will be a refuge from the Redeemer, and the murderer will not die until he stands before the congregation in judgment. Okay, in the face of Redeemer of blood, Shu Karov Nirtzach. He's the relative of the one murdered. The cities that you have to designate, 6 cities of refuge you shall establish. Rashi says, Magid she'afal pi she'ev'il Moshe b'chayav shalosh arim be'ever Yarden lo hayu koltot ad shenivcharu shalosh natan Yoshua be'eretz Canaan. This teaches us that even though Moshe established 3 cities in his lifetime on the other side of the Jordan, these cities did not provide refuge. So, hello Seth, how are you doing? So this teaches us that even though Moshe established 3 cities of refuge on the other side of the Jordan, they didn't act as a sanctuary city until the 3 that Joshua had designated in the land of Canaan were established. So all the cities had to work at the same time, or else none of them worked. So at Shosha Arim Titnu, see, why is this word, the Arim Asher Titenu, in verse 13? It's the cities that you shall designate. And why is it in here in verse 14 at Shosha Arim Titnu? It's not Titenu anymore. That's, I don't know the grammar, but why that's happened. The 3 cities you designate Eber Yardin, it's Shosha Arim Titnu, and the 3 cities you designate the Eretz Canaan are in the Mikatiana. So you're supposed to establish 3 cities on the other side of the Jordan and 3 cities in the land of Canaan. Rashi says, Aval Pishav Eretz Canaan Tisha Shvatim, even though in the land of Canaan there were 9 tribes, there were really 9.5 tribes. Rashi's not being exact here because half of Menashe is there. V'kan inon ela shnayim v'chetzi, and on the other side of the Jordan there were only 2.5 tribes. Hishva minyan arim miklat shalahem. Hashem made them have the same number of cities of refuge. Mishum de Gilad and the Fisherotzim. In Gilad there are a lot of killers. V'chsiv Gilad Kiryat Polei Aven Akuba Midam. I feel like we did this, Rashi, on Wednesday, but we'll do it again. So Gilad had a lot of murderers, but the question obviously is, but that means that they were intentional killers, and we're talking about accidental. So it clearly the case that one of the answers given is that some murderers would try to make their, Ramban says some murderers would try to make their intentional murder look accidental. So that's why they had to set it up that way. I mean, do you really think that you would need 6 cities to support the number of unintentional murders? How many unintentional murders, like manslaughter, are there in Israel today? There's way more people now than there were then.
There were 25,000 people killed since the beginning of the state of Israel in car accidents.
Through manslaughter.
Yeah, but they didn't have OSHA at that time.
Yeah, no.
I think car accidents is considered accident killing, no?
No. Most car accidents are not manslaughter. No. And they didn't have OSHA, but they also didn't have factories. No, the point is, how many manslaughter people have been convicted of manslaughter since the state?
It might be about proximity, so they have to flee to these cities. So if there's only one.
Okay, fine, that's a good point. But even then, let's say there was even only 1 city. How many people would populate that city? How many murderers would be there? 20? How many would take place a year? 10, 20? You wouldn't have.
But it's more than 1 year. It's until the Kohen Gadol dies. So.
Okay, so let's say it's. First of all, there's a population. The Kohen Gadol.
The population grows every year with 20 plus. You said yesterday that the students of the rabbi have to go with him, right? So.
So everybody's accompanying him. Okay, fine, fair enough. Okay. Yes,
a lot of people who are fleeing to these cities are committing intentional murders. That's why you try them.
Oh, so they tried to get out of it because it did the outside. It's another very good point.
Sorry, than have a city where you can have this kind of protection.
Very nice.
Also, were the Ari Mekot only populated by people who committed?
No, the Levites also.
So
is there any
and then maybe
Levites? Yeah, but then you ask another question: could you live there if you weren't a Levite and you weren't an unintentional killer? You just wanted to hang out with the Levites. You just like the Levites, right? That's my boy. Okay, I guess you could. So, because it makes sense. Because what were the Levites doing all day? They were teaching Torah. They were studying Torah. Can you imagine? You could study Torah from a Levite. It was such a inspiration. Okay, then we did this Rashi already. It says of Nei Israel. So the children of Israel, and for the resident alien who lives amongst them. We shall have these 6 cities as a refuge to run there, everyone who kills accidentally. Verse 16, if he strikes him with iron, vayamos, and he dies, rotseachu, mosi masa rotseach. If you strike him with iron and he dies, he's a murderer, mosi masa rotseach. So we saw this, I don't want to repeat the Rashi because we did this Rashi already that yesterday, that it means for iron, if you kill somebody with iron, it's any amount. There's no like amount of iron that's necessary that you're only liable if you have this amount of iron to commit the fatal blow. Whereas with other actions, there's a specific amount.
Because iron can cause death,
Yeah, because iron is a tool which any amount could cause the death.
and they would assume since he used it, it would have been killed.
Right, so this is talking about an intentional murder. In the Kli Bar Zelikal, if he strikes him intentionally with an iron tool, then even if it was a size of a needle, Rashi says, he's liable for murder.
Because when you kill someone, I mean, when you're hitting someone with something, you don't necessarily want to kill them. Maybe you just want to hurt them. And so that's why it's important to know.
Right, like if you strike somebody with a piece of wood, then there's a specific amount which the rabbis judge that's expectation is that you're going to kill somebody with that size tool.
Yeah.
But with iron, there's no specific amount. It's any amount.
Why? I guess cars are made of aluminum, but I was gonna say cars don't count as manslaughter because they're made out of metal.
I don't know anything about that. I think most things that are travel at the speed of a car will kill you if you're going fast. Okay, and if he strikes him down with a stone the size of a hand, vayamos, and he dies, rotseachu. He's a murderer. Again, Rashi says, mosi masa rotseach. So what is that? He shall be put to death. But Evan Yad, Rashi says, sheyesh ba yad, with a stone that fills the hand. Asher yamuspa, sheyesh ba shiur la'amis. It has a measurement to cause death. Ketar gumo. Fisha ne'amar v'ka ish re'eu be'evan. Somebody strikes his friend with a stone. It has to have the size of a stone to put to death. It doesn't give a size, but the size is the size that'll put him to death. Okay, Rashi then the next verse tells us, or creates yad, or if he strikes him with a utensil, a tool, the size of a hand made out of wood, asher yamuspa bikahu ayamos rotzeachu mosi masa rotzeach. If he strikes him with a tool the size of a hand and he dies, the murderer dies, the murderer shall be put to death. Rashi says, Obeklietz yad, Lafisha Nemar V'chiyake Ishes Avdo, Oesamaso Bashevet. Because the verse says, if a man strikes his servant or his slave woman with the rod, I might think any small rod, so that's to be the size that's able to kill him. Judy, you had a question?
No, I just looked it up. Since 1990, in the USA, average about 16,000 and small change of manslaughters.
Okay, but now, thanks for extrapolate. So that's 300 million people in the US.
Yeah, very,
And
very
it's
little.
like-
Very, very little.
There's 7 or 8 million in Israel. So do the percentage, and how many are there in Israel? I don't know.
And Judah's right. And by the way, and I think I'm not an attorney, but I think you definitely can get convicted for manslaughter for driving a car recklessly.
If you're reckless.
But this is involuntary, so you're saying it doesn't apply to manslaughter?
No, I'm just saying not every time you kill somebody with a car is a manslaughter.
Correct.
So I'm
Sometimes it could. be.
Yeah, sometimes it certainly could be, but not all the car accidents. You know what I mean?
Wouldn't it be what the Gemara calls shogeg karov lemezid?
Right. If it's shogeg karov mezid, then you don't go. If it's
What do you mean if it's shogeg or mazid? How could it be both?
no, he said
Karov.
he said shogeg close to mezid.
Oh, close.
So the
to mazid.
Talmud and there's it's every case has to be looked at carefully because the Talmud says that sometimes it's too intentional for the threshold of accidental to apply, and you don't get the right of running to the city of refuge.
How is this a spectrum? Didn't you mean to injure him, you're saying?
No, if you had intent, if there's intent, then
I'll
you're.
just give an example.
Yeah.
If somebody is driving fast to a wedding,
Road
like,
rage.
why are you driving fast? The law tells you not to. If you'll be late, you'll be late. But that's shogeg kol hamazid. You didn't mean to kill this guy, but you shouldn't have driven fast.
I don't
So
know.
most
That may be
most
just-
accidents are problematic because you don't know what the intent of. But you're an idiot. Not you, God forbid. I'm just
No, I
saying,
mean,
like,
I've done that. I've driven fast. So I've driven too fast. I need to slow down.
no, but you
so-
haven't killed anybody. I'm saying if
Thank
somebody
God.
does.
But according to him, you technically are liable just for driving too fast. I think we disagree with that, Rabbi Yosef.
I don't know. I mean, like, it's definitely a sin to drive recklessly. It's definitely a sin to drive recklessly. I'm talking to myself, not talking to
I
anyone
think
else.
road rage is a better example, Rabbi Yosef, because it's more intense. You have no control and you want to harm somebody.
It's not that common in DC. In New York, road rage is very common. Here, I've never seen anybody get too mad at me. Usually like chill here.
Downtown Silver Spring.
They get mad downtown Silver Spring. Okay.
I think that
Yeah.
if you're driving fast,
Yeah.
you are liable. I think whenever you step into a car and you realize that a car in reality is a weapon. I mean,
Yeah.
so you have to be aware that that you carry
Yeah.
a weapon, and just like you're carrying a firearm, you're very aware when you're with it, and so there should be no difference. Just because we've habituated it, it doesn't mean that it's not still something of potential of killing people, which is the ultimate thing we should be avoiding.
Of course, but sometimes it's not even the driver's fault. Like if the person's jaywalking or
Well,
something.
but if you're driving fast, then it is your fault, right? Because you drive slow.
I don't know what the law is then. If you're speeding and the person's jaywalking, I'm not sure it's your fault.
Yeah.
How
Absolutely.
much faster?
Well, look, for example, the reason, I'll give you an example why it is. If you go in a school zone,
Yeah.
clearly you're gonna have people, so maybe even kids. That's why they put a 20, well, I don't know, in California, it's 25 miles an hour, because
Yeah.
that is the sort of speed where you could potentially stop.
I don't know the answers to these questions. We gotta get somebody who knows more, but I certainly don't know. But a good rule of thumb is not to speed. Certainly not in a school zone. Certainly not in a school zone. So one time I'll tell you one time the rabbi, when I was growing up, Rabbi in my shul is Rabbi Marcus. And he told me a story that he was giving Rabbi Moshe Feinstein a ride from New York to Staten Island. So he picked up Rabbi Moshe Feinstein, and the cop pulled him over for speeding. So he says to Rabbi Moshe Feinstein, "I'm doing a mitzvah. I'm taking you where you need to go. And we have a concept that somebody is helping somebody do a mitzvah can't have anything bad happen to him. And how come I'm getting a ticket?" So Moshe Feinstein said to him, "That's why you got the ticket, so that you didn't crash. So they called you over to tell you to stop speeding."
That's a smart response.
That's what Moshe Feinstein said. Okay, so
I'd say it is a good thing.
yeah. So okay, verse 19. Go Adam hu yamit et harotzach befigo bo hu yamitenu. So the blood avenger should kill the murderer. He can kill the murderer when he encounters him. He could put him to death. Afil b'toch Ari Miklat. So if he did it intentionally and he runs to the Ari Miklat, to the city of refuge, then the blood avenger can put him to death.
So what's the point of your miklat if the?
It doesn't protect somebody who's an intentional killer. It only protects an unintentional killer. So if somebody kills intentionally and he runs to the city of refuge, he's not going to be protected. Verse 20, but let's say he pushed him out of hatred, or he shlichalav bitzdiya, or he attacked him in ambush and he dies. Rashi says bitzdiya, kitargumo bechamna, b'ma'arav, by ambush. Yeah, dafenu pushes him. If he pushes him in hatred, or he casts him out in bitzdiya, in ambush, and he dies. Oh, be'eva he ke'ahu. Or if he strikes him in enmity. Hello, John, are you here? You'll be here? Okay, yeah, because we're gonna dive in 5 minutes.
What is the difference between the case where the inventor can decide that it is unintentional and the case where the court has to decide that it's intentional? Because even if it is unintentional, they still have to go to court and plead their case, but it seems
Right.
there are cases in which the vendor can say, no, that actually was intentional and we're to follow you to the city.
So the Talmud discusses how they determine it. We're gonna get to tractate Makos, and then the Talmud's going to talk about, they look at the direction in which the axe was flying. And they look at whether you hated the person or you didn't know him. These are their tools.
And it seems a little bit like interesting that here they're saying, oh, even if you push him and he didn't mean, it was maybe like some, I don't know, some sort of situation where there's two people and it gets heated and they push each other, one pushes the other and the person dies without the intention of necessarily wanting to kill him, but still that happening. And before they mentioned like a stone versus an iron, and it seems like irrelevant. He's basically saying, no matter, in this case, in the above case, it matters if you have an iron or if you have a rock and the size of it. Here, it's like, no, you push someone.
So there are 2 points. One is what is necessary to be liable for murder, and what is the threshold where you get to be allowed to run to the city of refuge. So if you intentionally pushed him and you killed him, but you weren't
Trying to kill him.
but you weren't using the weapon that the expectation is that will kill him, then you're not liable for murder, but you also don't run to the city of refuge. You just have to be around in the walk around the regular world.
I think it might be the same case where they're saying like, if you hit someone with a piece of iron, regardless of the size, there's reasonable expectation they're gonna die. So you'll say that's intentional. But if it's like a small wooden thing, smaller than the size of your hand, then you might not expect them to die because of it. So you're not technically, in that case, it's counted as an accidental killing. Whereas if you're holding like a
Exactly.
big wooden thing and you
Exactly.
club them with it, then it's reasonable that they can die. So it's similar, I think.
Exactly. Okay, so now, very good, we're getting somewhere. So then the verse tells us 22, in bepeta, below Ivada, that's the case. If you strike him by surprise without any enmity, or or you struck him with any utensil without an ambush. Rashi says, bepeta, with suddenness, but onus, it's an accident. The targamo, the takef, it's suddenness. Shaya samucho, that the victim was close to him. He didn't have the ability to take the precautions. So here's a footnote here. The Talmud says this refers to a case in which the killer and the victim are walking along 2 sides of a building that are perpendicular to each other and thus don't see each other. Killer is carrying a sharp object in front of him. The 2 collide suddenly at the corner of the building, and the victim is fatally stabbed. This is an accident which contains an element of negligence because the killer should not have carried the object in a manner which could be hazardous to others. However, if one kills purely by accidents, for instance, if he throws a stone over the wall into an area to which people tend never to go, and someone happens to be there and is killed by the stone, is now liable to exile to the cities of refuge or any punishment. So basically, if you're carrying the knife in a negligent way and you kill someone, then you go to the city of refuge. But if you did something which is not even negligent, you threw the stone in a place where nobody was expected to be, then you don't have to go to the city of refuge.
So driving fast is definitely like
If you're
having
speeding,
if you're speeding, that's definitely like holding a knife outward.
yeah, but if you're going the speed limit and you kill somebody, then it's not.
Then it's not.
Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech shakol liyeh b'dvaro. Then it says, or b'kol even asher yamus ba, or any stone that he kills with it below ra'os, without seeing the person, vayapel olav vayamos, and he causes it to fall upon him and he dies. V'hu lo oyevlo, lo mevakesh raso. And he's not his enemy. He doesn't expect anything bad of him. He doesn't want to do damage. Rashi says, b'kol even asher yamus ba, he strikes him below ra'os. So he didn't see him. Vayapel olav, and he caused it to fall on him. Mikan amru hahoreg derech yirida Goa derech aliyah eno goa. So if he kills by way of descending, he goes into exile. But if he kills with the axe going upward, then he does not go into exile. Again, the Talmud gives us example. Let's say he was lowering a barrel from the roof. When it slipped, it fell on a person and killed him. Then he goes into exile. But if he's raising the barrel or going up the ladder and he falls, he doesn't go into exile. Okay? And the judges or the assembly shall judge between the blood avenger and the one who struck him on these laws. Rashi says nothing. And the assembly shall save the murderer from the hands of the blood avenger. Asher nashama. And the assembly shall save the murderer from the hands of the blood avenger, and he shall, and the assembly returns him to the city of refuge that he fled to. The Yashava and Mos HaKohen Gadol. He stays there until the Kohen Gadol dies. Kohen Gadol anointed him with the Kohen who was anointed with the holy oil. So until he dies. So he stays in the city of refuge until the Kohen Gadol dies. They're praying for the Kohen Gadol to die. Rashi says, Shehu ba ashrot shechina b'Yisrael, because the Kohen Gadol comes to cause the divine presence to rest on Israel, and to extend everyone's life. And the murderer causes the Shechina to depart from Israel. And he shortens their lives. He does not, it's not appropriate for him to be there before the Kohen Gadol. The Gemara tells us, I think it's in Makos, that the Kohen Gadol's mother used to bring food to the murderer so that he would enjoy his time there, so he wouldn't be praying for the Kohen Gadol to die. But you have to say, why do we care what he's praying? He's a murderer. No, don't underestimate the power of prayer. Even if a person has committed terrible sins, if they pray, their prayer can be incredibly powerful.
They can pray for the death of someone.
They might be praying for the death of the Kohen Gadol so that they could be released. So she has to bring them food so that they don't daven for that.
Also, beyond the effects on the Kohen himself, having someone who is, trying to better themselves, having an impetus for them to pray for the death of someone is not going to be good for their.
Yeah, for sure. Right, for sure. For sure. Okay, we have to have a minute for now. Yes, shakov to everybody.